On today's show, we are going to discuss the most important news of the last week. Fallout from cutdown day, week 3 preseason usage, injuries, holdouts, and how all that has affected our rankings. The biggest story, the story that captivated the fantasy world, was Sean McVay announcing Kyren Williams will be his punt returner this season. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I tweeted them, but I'm curious Evan's take first. When you first heard, Evan, or maybe now that you've digested it, what do you think about Kyren Williams being the punt returner for the Rams this year?
Well, the Rams opened last season with Kyren Williams as their punt returner. I think he returned punts for the first 3 games.
Yep.
And then they pulled him off because they were committing to him as their feature back. Now they're going back to him on punt returns. Does that indicate that he's not going to – I mean, I think we can all agree he's not going to be an 85% snap player.
Agreed.
Anymore. I did not move him down, but I did move Blake Corum up to the point where I think that he could have some standalone value. He's not just going to be a strict handcuff, and we know that he can explode. If something were to happen to Kyren, Kyren's 194 pounds. Relying on him as a true every down back workhorse is it's not a good long-term strategy. The Rams know that. That's probably a big reason why they drafted Blake Corum in the 3rd round. Blake Corum now, though, awesome 0 RB target. Mm-hmm. I think I think could give you a little bit of a floor in addition to the upside if something were to happen to Kyren.
Yeah, it's interesting. This would be so far out of character for McVay to not ride one back really hard. So far out of character. But the signs are there. And honestly, I like Kyren this year. I'm on Kyren, especially in home league formats, not as much in best ball. But I'd be lying if I said that this did not scare me a little bit. We don't need him out there for punts. It's just more chances to get hurt. And it suggests that, like Evan said, maybe his grip on the backfield isn't quite as strong. I just think McVay trusts Kyren so much. It's not like Kyren is even a good candidate. He's not even a punt returner. He's not that athletic. He's not that fast. McVay just trusts him. He just wants the ball in Kyren's hands more. So the thing is, people are freaking out oh my God, Kyren's going to share time. Yes, we know. If he was going to play 90% of the snaps, he'd be the number 2 player in fantasy behind Christian McCaffrey. Instead, we're projecting roughly 16 touches for Kyren per game and then roughly 8 or 9 for Blake Corum. We've been doing that. And we've been doing that the whole time before this punt return story. And that made Kyren, a round 2 pick in home league type setups. Again, in best ball, I thought Kyren was going too high relative to his range. But anyway, I don't think the punt return stuff is that big a deal. Most of the punt returns are fair catches. They'll be somewhere between 20 and 25 returns all year. Cooper Kupp has returned punts for the Rams also at times. So I don't think it's a big deal. But like Evan said, it makes me think that Corum could play maybe even more than we thought. And that is somewhat of a concern. Kyren also had that foot injury during OTAs, a history of foot injuries. So maybe that's a factor as well there. I know the Rams are very advanced on the sports science stuff. So
he is going to end up fair catching the vast majority of punts that he's going to get, by the way. One other thing, though, I just want to talk about the Rams in general. They have been really banged up in training camp. Matthew Stafford has experienced hamstring tightness. The Rams starting left tackle, Alaric Jackson, is out for the first 2 games due to a suspension for violating the NFL's conduct policy. Left guard Jonah Jackson, who they gave a bunch of money to, is out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. It sounds like their starting right tackle, Rob Havenstein, is not going to be ready for week 1. Puka Nacua, I bumped down a couple spots in the wide receiver rankings from, I think, my 12th overall player to 15th overall player because there has been some buzz that his recovery might be a little bit he's struggling a little bit in his recovery from knee injuries from his knee injury.
By the way, Evan, I should say that conversation you had with Greg Rosenthal went not viral, but a lot of people on fantasy Twitter are talking about that little conversation you had with Greg Rosenthal trying to interpret what he was saying about Puka. Unless I hear more, I'm not moving Puka down, but I hear you. It's at least a little bit scary right now. We'll know a lot more next week when they get to practice.
Yeah, it's just for safety purposes, there are wide receivers that I would rather draft ahead of him in his tier. I moved him down in his tier. I almost moved him down a little bit further, but Greg was like, there might be nothing to this. Greg does a show pretty regularly with Jordan Rodriguez, who covers the Rams for The Athletic and also lives out in LA. There are strong ties between NFL Network and the Rams. Kara Henderson, who's married to Les Snead, worked for NFL Network for years and years. So, I mean, they get tidbits about the Rams.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to. Oh, by the way, just to close the loop on Kyren, we didn't move Kyren. We have Kyren as our running back 8 in the ETR half PPR top 300. That is right behind Devon Achane and right in front of Derrick Henry. So I still feel pretty good about where we have Kyren there. Second story of the day to get to is Rashee Rice. NFL not expected to put Rashee Rice on paid leave via the commissioner exempt list. They won't make a decision on any Rashee Rice suspension until the legal process plays out. That leaves him eligible to play in the meantime. I mean, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now, Evan. Hopefully you guys got your Rashee Rice bags packed. I was in like a scramble over my last, 30 or 40 drafts or so to get as much Rashee Rice as I could. I did an okay job of it. I don't know if I did a great job of it. We're now up to 35 overall on Rashee Rice in half PPR, ahead of DJ Moore, ahead of DK Metcalf, ahead of T. Higgins, kind of right there with Neighbors, Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith. I like that range for Rashee Rice right now. I think it's a pretty big favorite. 70% that he doesn't get suspended at all this season. So, I mean, adjust accordingly there. Evan, any thoughts on where you're thinking on Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I had previously bumped him up to 35 overall. And within the last 2 days, with the positive news coming out, again, as we get closer and closer to the season and it becomes more and more likely that he's not going to get suspended, he should be moving up the rankings. I think I have him like 25th overall at this point.
Yes, Evan is at 25 overall on Rashee Rice. And to be clear, there's no official date for his criminal trial that I can find right now. And lawyers can just push this stuff back and push it back and push it back. Anyways, so I feel pretty good about Rashee playing the whole season.
I feel really good about him as a player as well. I mean, I think he's going to absolutely smash. At 25 overall, I'm now ahead of ADP, and like real good chance that you're going to get him if you're using the rankings during this final draft weekend. I want to stay aggressive on him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let's go to the number 3 story of the day. Talked about this a little bit yesterday on the Bus Show, but Jonathon Brooks officially lands on injured reserve, is now ineligible to play in the first 4 games of the season. I did want to note that in the preseason finale, Bryce Young played 12 snaps. Chuba Hubbard was in for 10 of them. Miles Sanders 2. So just because they got a new regime, they haven't changed their mind on this Chuba versus Miles thing. And we talk, if you want to hear more about Jonathon Brooks, you can certainly listen to yesterday's show. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on Chuba, Miles, Jonathon Brooks?
Yeah, Miles Sanders. There's a name that we haven't heard very much from during this training camp. I mean, I don't really have a ton to add to that. I bumped Jonathon Brooks way down, though. I had him like 90 overall previously, and he's down around like 120.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really. He's on the shy away list. Like, I don't really want anything to do with him at this point. I'm not even confident that when he comes back, he's going to be used in any kind of like a feature back role. I mean, Chuba Hubbard is a guy that coaches like, and he's not super talented, but he will get what's blocked. He will block. He can catch a little bit. He's a guy that coaches trust.
Yeah, and I mean, he was actually PFF's number 16 running back out of like 60-something qualifiers last year. I thought Chuba had a pretty good year last year. Again, on Jonathon Brooks, just be aware of your IR spots. If you have one IR spot, Jonathon Brooks is more valuable. If you have 2 IR spots, Jonathon Brooks is more valuable than that. If you have none, Jonathon Brooks, I think, is a tough hold. There's going to be a ramp-up period for sure after he gets cleared and back anyways. And this team, I think the team might be better than the market thinks. Like, I don't think they're actually as bad as the market thinks to some degree, but market has them like completely inept. I mean, the second lowest implied team total of the whole year. Let's go to the number 4 story. Patriots, I don't want to say a surprise, but I was hoping that they would name Drake May their starter. Instead, they named Jacoby Brissett their starter here today. Jacoby Brissett will be there with very little weaponry and Brandon Thornton's number 31 offensive line. I have some guesses as to when Drake May will get into the lineup, Evan, but what do you think of the Patriots deciding to go with Jacoby Brissett?
It's kind of a cowardly move. But I don't think they're playing for 2024 anyways. They know that they are. I mean, they traded away Matt Judon. You know, they're not really playing for this season. They know that they're going to let him take hits early in the season. It's just going to be a matter of time before Drake. I think we will see Drake May before October hits. I think we will see him at some point in September. And it's going to be really interesting to watch because really talented guy. I mean, has some similarities to Josh Allen from a size standpoint, even from a little bit scattershot in terms of his accuracy, but he can really run. It'll be interesting to see if when he gets in there, he can show signs of being able to elevate the talent around him. So I think we'll get a few games of Jacoby Brissett, and then we'll be able to compare and contrast when Drake May gets in there. Super talented guy. There were guys, there are draft experts that I really respect that thought that Drake May was the best quarterback in this class.
Yeah, that's a hot take for sure. I'll say this. The Patriots schedule, they open at the Bengals, then home versus Seattle, then at the Jets, one of the best defense in the league, then at the 49ers, one of the best defense in the league. This is going to get ugly and ugly quick for Jacoby Brissett. I think we'll see Drake May maybe week 5 home against Miami.
I think that's fair.
Week 5. I mean, I don't want to put Drake May out there at San Francisco or at the Jets, right? So home against what did I say? Miami in week 5. And for the best ball stuff, if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, if you're in 2 quarterback redraft, I think Drake May is a nice hold, man. He can run, and he's going to run, I think, more than people think, and he should be really cheap in drafts after this Joey Brissett announcement. All right. Let's go to story number 5. Cowboys make their move at running back. It's our old friend Dalvin Cook. I mean, we've been down this path with Jets last year, and this was one of the things that we got right last year that was like the biggest difference maker. When Dalvin Cook was signed by the Jets last year, everyone freaked out and dumped Breece Hall. We kept taking Breece Hall in round 4 and round 5, and sometimes even round 6, and turned out to be like the biggest win or one of the biggest wins of the whole season. I am not going to be scared by Dalvin Cook whatsoever. That said, Evan, I can see how people might say, oh, well, yeah, Dalvin Cook got iced by Breece Hall. Is Dalvin Cook really going to get iced by the corpse of Zeke Elliott and Rico Dowdle? So do you think Dalvin actually has a role in this backfield?
No. And they didn't even sign him to the active roster, right? They just signed him to the practice squad.
Correct.
Yes, I actually think that the odds are against him even playing a snap for the Cowboys at any point this season. There was video of him throwing a medicine ball against a wall. Now, I don't know how much the medicine ball weighs, but I was like, God, I can do that better than the way that he like. I mean, not really, but I mean, he wasn't very impressive throwing the medicine ball.
Yeah, I mean, he looked bad last year. Like I thought it was totally over, totally over for Dalvin.
He's stiff. I mean, he's not going to make anybody miss. He's not going to run over anybody. Not going to run away from anybody. Like I think that they'll release him from the practice squad in short order.
Okay, my only concern, and I agree, and we're not giving Dalvin hardly anything. It didn't move our rank at all on Rico or Zeke. My only concern is that Rico and Zeke just like aren't that good, and they're like, let's give Dalvin a chance here. We don't have anyone else, but yeah, we'll see how it goes with Dalvin. But again, we do not have moves on the rankings for that. Story number 6: the Samaje Perine saga is finally over. Cut by the Broncos, as we've been speculating for pretty much the entire summer. Signs with Kansas City. Now, from what I understand, the Bengals were in the mix for Samaje Perine also, but didn't want to spend the money. KC gives him more money, and that pretty much eliminates Jerick McKinnon from coming back. So let's start first on the Kansas City stuff. Evan, Kansas City will go with Pacheco, Perine, CEH, and Carson Steele in their running back room. How much of the old McKinnon role, which was sizable, do you think Samaje Perine takes here?
Well, I think it'll take him a little bit to ramp up. They're not inserting him just as a runner. Oh, you got to hit this hole. Like he's going to need to learn all the protections and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we saw Isaiah Pacheco had surgery during the season last year on his shoulder, came out of college with a long history of shoulder stuff. So it was always risky for them to enter the season with like nothing behind him on the depth chart. And now they have a guy he's a big back. He's not really Samaje Perine is a big back, but he's not really a productive between the tackles runner. But he can serve in this role where he can pass protect and come in and catch dump down check offs, check downs, sporadically. So I mean I think that Samaje Perine is now draftable as like I stuck him in the very end of the top 150. He's like a 13th, 12th, 13th, 14th round kind of guy. And I do think that this, it hurts Isaiah Pacheco from the standpoint that his potential to catch passes is lowered. I already thought that it wasn't great. Patrick Mahomes throws the football downfield.
Yeah.
He's not really a check down passer at all. and now he's not going. Pacheco is going to lose opportunities to do that to Samaje Perine. Carson Steele is really not on the radar anymore.
I will say that the Chiefs did lead the NFL in screen passes per game last year. So, like, that is available to Pacheco, and he's been very good on those. Let's just zoom out for a sec. Samaje Perine was cut by the Broncos. Like, he is not like that big of a threat here. I do think that Pacheco deserves to be docked. We are down to 33 overall in the half PPR on Pacheco. ADP is 21, so we're behind there pretty significantly on Pacheco versus home league ADP. The thesis on Pacheco was that he was going to take a lot of that Jerick McKinnon work, which not only was pass downs, but was also McKinnon played a ton in the red zone. I don't know how they're going to play that with Perine. I actually think that from a trust level, they might have more trust in Pacheco right now. And Pacheco actually plays more than we think down there inside the red zone and on third down. So I don't want to write off Pacheco on this because of Samaje Perine whatsoever. Still very in on Pacheco for this year, especially early on, as Evan said, while Perine gets up to speed. Let's go to Broncos now that we know Perine is gone. They decided to keep Blake Watson. So they have 4 backs on the roster: Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Blake Watson. To me, Blake Watson looks like the direct backup to Jaleel, maybe. I'm not sure. And then Estime is the direct backup to Javonte. I still kind of think we're going to see mainly 2 backs, at least early on in games. And I really like Jaleel McLaughlin as a pick right now in the 150s or so. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on Broncos backfield now that Perine has been removed?
I think we're going to open up the season with a 2-man backfield. Javonte Williams dominating the early down stuff, and Jaleel McLaughlin as Sean Payton's like poor man's Darren Sproles. I think that both of those guys are. I mean, I like Javonte Williams in the 7th round right now. Okay. I think he's actually one of the best values on the board right now. And I really like Jaleel. I've really come on to Jaleel McLaughlin, who I was kind of dismissive of early. I mean, he weighs 187 pounds, but he fills a specific role. And I think he's going to open this. And he was good last year. And I think that Sean Payton kind of loves him.
Yeah.
So I have him around like 120 right now overall. And he's a guy that, especially in 0 RB, as like an RB4, RB5, full PPR, like I think that he could have some standalone value. I think Audric Estime probably opens the season as a healthy scratch, and Blake Watson maybe plays special teams. And like you said, Blake Watson's 5'9", 195. So I think that guess that he might be the direct backup to Jaleel could be spot on.
Yeah, and I like that, being aggressive on McLaughlin right now. And again, we have this long history of every Sean Payton offense being among the league leaders in running back targets. Like every single year, Sean Payton offense is among the league leaders in running back targets, which is certainly good for these guys. Last fallout of this Perine thing, everybody assumed that he was going to Cincy, right? Now, and I thought that was the favorite. I thought he was a favorite to go to the Bengals. He doesn't. So the Bengals now will ride with Zach Moss, Chase Brown, and Travion Williams. I mean, this is the best run out that Zach Moss and Chase Brown could have had. They didn't add anyone. They bring back Travion Williams. They're just going to ride with this. It's pretty exciting for both Moss and Chase Brown. Any final thoughts on Bengals running back here, Evan?
I'm really excited about Chase Brown, and I think that Zach Moss, at least for a while, is going to be heavily involved to begin the season. They care so little about Travion Williams that they cut him, and then they didn't get Perine and they brought back Travion Williams. So yep. I don't think he's going to be any kind of factor on offense, and it's going to be a 2-man backfield. I think eventually the talent is going to rise to the top, and that's Chase Brown.
All right. Let's go to another Bengals story. Story number 7 here is Ja'Marr Chase situation. I thought that once the CeeDee Lamb deal got done, that the Ja'Marr Chase deal would get done like a day later. Like the framework was set. But this is the Bengals we're talking about, the stone cold cheapest organization in the entire NFL. I don't know what they're doing. Zach Taylor seemed like he said the deal was done and Ja'Marr Chase is going to practice, and the next day Ja'Marr Chase isn't practicing. I don't want to say I'm worried, but it's a little concerning. And there's certainly data out there that guys who don't participate in training camp at all can come out of the gate slower for sure. So it's scary to me right now. I was in a draft yesterday. I think it was the 6th pick, and it was either Amon-Ra or Ja'Marr Chase, and I decided to go Amon-Ra. Even though I like Ja'Marr Chase better, I went Amon-Ra. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It seems scary. I don't think it's going to linger into the season too far, but I honestly don't know. Evan, any takes on the Ja'Marr Chase situation?
So I've the entire time had like that little mini tier of Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamar Chase all next to each other, but Chase at the bottom of that mini tier, which more often than not means that I'm not getting Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Because I'm always going to take Justin Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown over him. I mean, it's starting to get concerning. Like this is Thursday. We're 7 days away from the first game. And for them, it's 10 days away.
Mm-hmm.
It's concerning. Like, I would lean away from drafting him. I mean, I just take another awesome dude.
Unlike Brandon Aiyuk, at least, and we'll get to Brandon Aiyuk in a second, but unlike Brandon Aiyuk, at least Jamar Chase has practiced. He did get in like a couple practices earlier this week for what it's worth. So we'll see. But yeah.
Because Zach Taylor said that he was going to, all right,
Yeah.
He's back now. We're going to have him all week. He's going to be ready for week 1. And the very next day, he's back not practicing. It's almost like they had a breakdown in negotiations. Again, the Bengals have always been fairly dysfunctional because they're cheap.
Yeah.
And Mike Brown, is a hard-headed, stubborn guy. And if you piss him off, he's not going to always back down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not worried about this. I would have him the same way Evan has it now, behind Amon-Ra and Justin Jefferson for sure. Okay. While we're here, we might as well talk about Brandon Aiyuk. Story number 8, Brandon Aiyuk saga just never ends. I am so tired of I hope you have something on this, Evan. I don't even have any notes on this. I'm just like mega tilted. I have no idea what's going on. And the 49ers seem to have no idea what's going on. Like John Lynch and Shanny both got up there yesterday and were like, listen, we don't really know. He's got to play. That was basically it. They just seemed like frustrated. They're like, he's got to play. So where you at on Brandon Aiyuk right now, Evan? His ADP continues to sink. I mean, people are legit worried about this.
Yeah, I mean, it is just never ending, this saga. I mean, what I would do personally right now is I just try to draft around him, but then if he falls around past where he belongs, then I'd be willing to take him.
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes down to that. But I would be drafting around him right now and not willing to take him probably until the 4th round.
Yeah. My line was when he gets to like the back half of round 3, that was when I've been taking him. Round 4 for sure, I take him. And that's best ball stuff, not home league stuff. So I'd have to think about it more for home league. But yeah, it's just that one to me seems worse than the Jamar Chase one. Like Aiyuk seems like he's being more stubborn. So we'll see, but not good.
I did a draft with JJ Zacharyson, Rich Rebar, Davis Maddock, and Pat Thorman last night for FFPC main event, and we got Brandon Aiyuk at 5.2.
Yeah, that's a smash. I mean, yeah. All right. Story number 9. Actually, some good news for my bags. Really good news for my bags, actually. AJ Dillon surprisingly lands on injury reserve. And this was not like one of these fake cut IR things. I actually think he got a stinger. It's his second stinger. He's worried about his neck and he's out for the season. Wish AJ Dillon well. Marshawn Lloyd, meanwhile, who was speculated to land on IR due to hip and hamstring issues, does not. So Packers rolling into week 1 here with Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, and Marshawn Lloyd. We're not sure if Marshawn Lloyd's going to be ready to play week 1, but this is running out really well, I think, for all 3 of those guys. Like, I've been drafting all 3 of them lately. Jacobs, who I know Evan is on big time. I like Jacobs too. Emmanuel Wilson is like a last round pick. And then Marshawn Lloyd, who got the good injury news, not on IR. So, I mean, I like all 3 of these guys right now. Evan, what do you think about the way Packers backfield ran out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, I could sort of see this. I didn't predict AJ Dillon going on IR, season-ending IR, let alone. But I mean, you could just kind of see that, Josh Jacobs is not going to have competition for touches, at least early in the season. I think that Marshawn Lloyd is still very, very draftable and offers upside, but you can't expect anything from him early in the season. Emmanuel Wilson is this guy. There's been like buzz that the Packers like him a lot, but we haven't really seen him in action. I just think that Josh Jacobs is going to come out the gate getting 20 plus touches a game, and if you draft him, like he should be of great assistance in the scoring column early in the year.
Yeah, and that's not really Matt LaFleur's MO to go out and give Josh Jacobs 20, 25 touches in a game, but he might not have a choice here. We are up to 30th overall on Jacobs in our half PPR rankings right now, if you wanted to reach a little bit above that, if you started like wide receiver, then you wanted Josh Jacobs, I would not hesitate to reach above our rank to do so. The only other thing that I'd say is that Matthew Berry does that column from the combine each year. And he was at the combine. I guess he was talking to Packers people. And he had a note in his column after the combine that, and this was way back, months ago, like they really like Emmanuel Wilson. Don't sleep on Emmanuel Wilson. So I don't want to discount Emmanuel Wilson having like a legit big role here come week 1. Let's go to story number 10. Eli Mitchell lands on IR. This was another one that kind of came out of the blue, was not prepared for this. Thought Eli Mitchell was battling Jordan Mason for that handcuff role. Instead, it all goes to Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason is now 1 injury away. I mean, I would consider him and Blake Corum probably the 2 best handcuffs in the league right now, Corum and Jordan Mason. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on Eli Mitchell going to IR?
Jordan Mason is a real good late round draft pick. I mean, yeah, so they've got Garendo, who keeps getting hurt. He got hurt again. Is it Isaiah Garendo?
Isaac, yep.
Isaac. He's like the guy who had very little production in college, but was just a total freak athlete.
Yep. And they have Patrick Taylor.
Patrick Taylor, who used to play for the Packers under Matt LaFleur, who comes from that Shanahan tree. I mean, I think that the deck is pretty clear for Jordan Mason to be the clear number 2 back in an awesome offense, trustworthy offense behind a guy in CMC who has battled a calf strain. We are not concerned about it right now, but that's a soft tissue injury for a running back who has some history of that. So Jordan Mason is like a priority late round pick right now.
For those guys who are DraftKit Pro or in-season subscribers, during this year, we're adding a 1 injury away article. In other words, we're going to rank the guys who are 1 injury away from being very viable assets in fantasy. That goes for all positions, but at running back specifically, you can see it with Corum and Mason and Trey Benson and guys like this, very, very cleanly. All right. Story number 11, going back to Denver, Tim Patrick and Little Jordan Humphrey get cut. So they're going with Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, and Troy Franklin at the wide receiver position. There's a lot of buzz around this Vele guy right now. 0 buzz around Franklin and Marvin Mims. I hope that it works out for him, but Sean Payton still seems like the usage in preseason was bad. It's just scary for me. I feel best about Sutton, second best about Josh Reynolds. Evan, any thoughts on Broncos wide receiver room?
That's about the same for me. I moved Cortland Sutton way up because, I mean, he's just – I don't even know how he's going to fit with Bo Nix. Bo Nix is like a quick game passer. Cortland Sutton is like a big, ball snatcher down the football field. I don't know about the fit on offense. There were, off-season trade rumors even about him. He scored 10 touchdowns last year, but didn't really do anything else. Benefited actually more than anybody from Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson just throws the ball in the end zone and Cortland Sutton can go get it. Bo Nix doesn't really play that way, but Cortland Sutton is the clear-cut number 1 receiver in Denver and should fairly easily lead the team in targets. I don't know what to think about Marvin Mims either. I kind of want it to be optimistic about him. Like they need a guy who has actual speed. And Marvin, that's technically Marvin Mims, but I don't know what to think about him.
They needed that last year, and they didn't even play him. They didn't even give him a chance. You know, so
even while when they actually did, he showed the ability to make big plays.
Right. So I'm not going to assume rational coaching on Marvin Mims whatsoever. I think that'll be Reynolds and Sutton will be the primary guys here. We're up to 105 in our half PPR on Sutton. Evans a little bit higher there in his top 150, but Sutton's ADP is very low. I mean, 114 right now in home leagues on Cortland Sutton. I agree. I'm not sure that Sutton is a fit, and also not sure that he's good enough. So I don't want to get too crazy on Cortland Sutton. Let's go to another surprise from cuts. Number 12, Noah Brown cut by the Texans. I wasn't expecting this at all because I thought Noah Brown gave them really good snaps last year. 1.94 yards per route run last year for Noah Brown. He had 3 monster games. He had a 6.153.1, a 7.172.0, and an 8.82.1. I don't know why they cut him. Commanders signed him almost immediately, which we'll talk about in a second, but it sounds like they really like what John Mechie's been doing. And, if you're playing deep stuff, John Mechie sounds like now he's one injury away from being in a really good role on what we expect to be one of the best passing offenses in the league. So just want to put that out there on Mechie. Evan, any reaction to Noah Brown getting cut here?
Yeah, Noah Brown has been around for like a while. Used to play for Dallas, and he's a guy that even going back to Ohio State, he never did anything from a production standpoint. And I think that his numbers are just a testament to how awesome CJ Stroud is. That he's a talent elevator. Also, this regime, they have really no connection to Noah Brown. They they're keeping the guys that they drafted. They drafted John Mechie in the second round. They drafted Xavier Hutchinson, another big body receiver, who they may just see as, hey, we drafted this guy. He's younger than Noah Brown. Let's keep him. But I mean, those are the decisions that they're making, and I understand it. I do think he's a pretty good pickup for Washington. Did he go on the 53 or did he go on the practice squad?
I believe he's on the 53, and
I think so too.
He might be better than Dion. I don't know. Like, what do you think about De'Ami Brown versus Noah Brown?
I don't know.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if Noah Brown can immediately get snaps ahead of De'Ami or Alamini Zacchaeus.
He's also a guy that he can play in the slot. He can be a big slot too.
Yeah. And Luke McCaffrey has not generated much positive buzz. I still am leaving the light on for Luke McCaffrey this season, but buzz has not been good this preseason. Like if Steph Diggs got hurt or something, you're going to want to have John Mechie, I guess is my point. And that goes back to the one injury away stuff. He'll be a hot pickup if any of the Texans' top 3 wide receivers get hurt. Story number 13, going to Cleveland. Browns cut D'Onta Foreman, but then bring him back. It was some roster gymnastics. So now they're going to go with Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong, and D'Onta Foreman. Nick Chubb, of course, will open the season on IR. I think Foreman can have that goal line role, kind of a Kareem Hunt-ish role. Jerome Ford, though, is still the one that I want because I think Jerome Ford can be the feature back before Chubb returns. And then if/when Chubb returns, you can get Jerome Ford on some passing downs too. Evan, any thoughts on Brown's running back room now that it's been finalized here with Ford, Strong, and Foreman?
Yeah, so they cut Foreman for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I made a move up with regard to Jerome Ford. I don't even know if I'm going to move him back down, though. I mean, it just shows that the Browns, they don't really value D'Onta Foreman. That they let him be on the street for a day or two and not worried about somebody else picking him up,
Yeah.
But clearly Jerome Ford is going to open the season as the Browns' top tailback. And again, as we've talked about, he kind of is a spread back, and they want to play more spread under Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he'll have some value early in the season, and who knows when Nick Chubb is coming back. I mean, he went on reserve PUP, and I would not expect him back before like week 8.
And even when Nick Chubb gets back, you have to give Jerome Ford a share of the base work. Chubb's not going to be ready for that. And then probably all the passing down work. Nick Chubb never played in passing downs anyways. So, yeah, Evan, we're at 113 on Jerome Ford right now in the top 300. Evan is at 104. ADP is down around 115. I like the Jerome Ford stuff where he goes right now, especially as part of hero or zero RB stuff. Story 14, Odell Beckham, who everyone's like, oh, what a great signing for the Dolphins. He's going to smash. Odell Beckham, of course, stays on PUP. They haven't even disclosed his injury. Has barely practiced, if at all. I don't think he's practiced at all camp. I'm excited about Malik Washington, man. He slipped to round 6 in the actual NFL draft due to medical stuff. He's only 5'8", 191. Just very, very athletic and very, very productive. So Malik Washington with Mike McDaniel, he could be the wide receiver 3 right away. And Tyreek has had some hand thing. Waddle's had some calf thing. It's not that crazy to think Malik can have an impact right away. And Odell is so beyond wash/dusted. So I'm excited about this one for deep leaguers. Evan, any thoughts on Odell, Malik Washington stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the Dolphins right now, even with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle a little banged up, they only have 5 wide receivers on their 53. And the 5th of those is Grant Dubose, who they just claimed off waivers from the Packers.
Yeah.
So they really only have 4 playable wide receivers right now. I think that speaks to the fact that they are looking at Malik Washington for something of a role early in the season, or at least that they trust him to play something of a role, because it's just Waddle and Tyreek, who again are both banged up right now, and then Braxton Berrios, who's probably going to be their third receiver to open the year. I wonder if they can get something out of Jonnu Smith. Look, the offense is always, always, and forever going to be centered around Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, just feeding them relentlessly.
Mm-hmm.
But I do wonder if this opens the door for Jonnu Smith to make a little bit of an impact. They got nothing in terms of receiving value from their tight ends last season.
Yep. Totally fine with Jonnu as a late round tight end stab. Just one more thing on Malik Washington. He was at Northwestern for his first 4 years of his college career, transfers to University of Virginia. First year at UVA, 110 catches, 1,426 yards, and 9 touchdowns from Malik Washington. Not big, but athletic guy, not the fastest, but athletic. I think it's really interesting.
The first that I heard of him was when we had Mike Renner on before the draft, and he was talking up Malik Washington as one of his favorite sleepers.
Yep.
He's like 5'8".
Yep.
But really fun guy to watch. I think Matt Harmon liked him as well as a sleeper.
All right. Story 15 from the preseason usage stuff. So preseason is over. Pat Friermuth only played on 25 of 43 snaps with Steelers starters this season. Darnell Washington, 23. Michael Pruitt, 12. I mean, it's this Arthur Smith stuff, man. I don't think he agrees with any of the rest of us who his best players are. And that's so scary. So Friermuth, Cole Kmet, I've just been passing over that whole range there. And then instead, I usually take, like a Dalton Kincaid or McBride or Andrews or Laporta or Kelsey or Ingram or Kittle or whatever, skip over that whole middle range and then come back later with shots on Noah Fant, Luke Musgrave, Cade Otton, Ben Sinnott, Colby Parkinson, Jonnu Smith, so I've been pretty much out on Friermuth here. Evan, what do you think of the way he was using the preseason and any more Friermuth thoughts?
Yeah, Friermuth is on the shy away list. I don't want any part of him. I think Darnell Washington is going to play a lot, and that's reflected in the preseason usage. Darnell Washington is like almost 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And he can block out the sun. And they've had some issues with their offensive line in training camp so far, which was supposed to be a strength, like maybe the strength of the team. But like guys have gotten injured. Maybe rookies haven't come along as quickly as hoped. Broderick Jones, who is he's moving from right tackle to left tackle, has apparently had some struggles. They're going to play a ton of 2 tight end sets. They don't have any receivers other than George Pickens. It's going to be a 2 tight end offense, and they're going to run the ball relentlessly with Najee Harris.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like no one wants to like admit that.
Yeah.
Like Najee Harris is going to get 1 million carries this year.
I know. It's going to be bad.
Jaylen Warren is hurt.
Mike Tomlin's streak of consecutive winning seasons is in big trouble. I mean, big trouble. He's got some insane record of like consecutive. It's big trouble this year. All right.
Even when the Steelers suck, they have a winning record like last year.
Exactly. All right. Story number 16. Just wanted to highlight this A.D. Mitchell stuff from preseason. So Anthony Richardson played 25 snaps in their preseason finale. A.D. Mitchell was out there for 24 of them. And out of those 24, he was in the slot 20 times, gets a 29% target share on a reasonably big sample. Now, of course, this was with Josh Downs out. I just thought it was notable since Josh Downs went down with that high ankle sprain. A.D. Mitchell's been playing well, getting buzz. Usage has been incredible. I think he's a pretty solid late round flyer now, whereas before I thought he was a really bad pick where he was going. Now, I actually think he's a pretty strong late round flyer. Evan, any thoughts how this is going to play out between Pittman, Mitchell, Downs, Alec Pierce?
I think it's a really interesting situation. First of all, I moved A.D. Mitchell into the 150, and he's a guy that I think now is like an upside late round flyer. To an extent, the Colts have organizational motivation to see A.D. Mitchell succeed, because you remember that rant that Chris Ballard went on after the draft, like defending A.D. Mitchell and criticizing the media and all this. Like they are somewhat incentivized to see to it that he succeeds. Obviously, they thrust him into that big slot role when Josh Downs went down. This seems like a pretty severe high ankle sprain, by the way. I don't think there have been any indications that he's going to even come close to being ready for week 1.
No.
And then when he does come back, it wouldn't surprise me if A.D. Mitchell, if he plays well early in the season, that they just move him to X receiver and then use Alec Pierce as the number 4 in the situational deep threat. A.D. Mitchell, the way he moves different.
Yeah.
I mean, he is an interesting athlete who was probably a first-round talent who slipped to 42 overall. I mean, they might have gotten a steal there.
Yeah, for sure. My concerns around Indy pass game remain that can Anderson get to a second read?
Right.
How accurate can he be? Can he support more than one? And we think he's going to be supporting Pittman for the most part. So that's the concern. But yeah, that's the kind of shot that I want to take in redraft is like, let me get A.D. Mitchell, see how it goes week 1 or week 2. If it doesn't go well, or if the usage isn't there or whatever, we'll just move on for waivers. Story number 17. We got to look at Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars starters in the preseason finale. 23 snaps for them. ETN 17, Tank Bigsby 6. Now, again, we've talked about this before. This was the way it went last training camp for Bigsby. Then he just flubbed it. Remember, though, Travis Etienne was 4th in raw carries last year, 267. Plus, he got 73 targets. You know, I don't want to be buying the top of Travis Etienne because he's going to need that kind of raw volume to get there again. So I do not have very much Travis Etienne at all this year, with the assumption being they want to give him breaks, and Tank Bigsby seems better poised to do so this year. I know we've talked about this a bunch already, Evan, but any final thoughts on Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby this season?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add that we haven't already talked about. Tank Bigsby is definitely worth a late round flyer, though.
Okay. Chris Godwin, real quick on this one. Bucks promised us all offseason Chris Godwin was going back to his natural slot role. He was struggling badly to the point where I think his wife went on Instagram or something and ripped Canales.
Put my baby in the slot.
Put my boy in the slot. Exactly. I mean, she knows ball. Apparently the Bucks didn't, but under this new regime, Godwin is back in the slot. He made his preseason debut in week 3. He played 7 snaps. He was in the slot for 6 of those. So good thing for Chris Godwin, no doubt. He's one guy that we've been higher on than market for pretty much the entire process. Any thoughts on Godwin here, Evan?
I think that there was actually maybe some reason to be a little bit skeptical that they might do this because they drafted Jalen McMillan, who was primarily a slot receiver at Washington, and he quickly earned the number 3 receiver job.
Yeah.
But they're going to use him at Z receiver, Mike Evans at X, Chris Godwin in the slot. I think they've got this figured out.
Yeah, and I actually had that as story number 19 here. Jalen McMillan ices Trey Palmer, wins the wide receiver 3 job. I would note Trey Palmer got 68 targets last season. This is a real role. And also, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin aren't the youngest guys. So I take Jalen McMillan a lot as a late round flyer. He's just so cheap, at least in best ball, compared to other rookie wide receivers. And then there's a lot of people out there that think Jalen McMillan can play. So, he's not expensive. He goes 190 overall or something. I think it's a great late round flyer on Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, the ship chasers call him Jalen McMillions.
Yes.
He's going to make them millions of dollars.
Hopefully we'll all be calling him Jalen McMillions. Hopefully. You'll never see me on this podcast again. Okay. Story number 20. Clarity on Chargers running back room. They kept 4. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal, and Jarrett Patterson. Vidal did enough the last 2 weeks, got healthy to the point where he didn't even have to play in the preseason finale. So I thought that was a really good sign for him. I still don't consider Vidal anything more than a late round flyer, but given the situation with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, Vidal definitely, I think, is going to get a chance at some point this year. Evan, any final thoughts on Chargers backfield here?
Yeah, they kept those 4, and then they added off of waivers Hassan Haskins,
yes,
who played for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. So
played for the Titans, yep.
Yep, and they got him off waivers from the Titans, but just another name to keep in mind. I think it's going to be Gus Edwards to open the season, but we'll see. I think everybody at the end of the day, everybody's going to get one bite at the apple, and it might be a hot hand. It may not lead to very much fantasy production or consistent, reliable fantasy production, but I don't know. We'll be following it every week because they're going to run the ball
for sure. A couple more small ones here. Story 21. Evan's best friend, Zay Jones, was suspended 5 games for violating the personal conduct policy. This is related to domestic violence. And I think the NFL on the domestic violence stuff is coming down harder and faster than they are on things like the Jordan Addison or Rashee Rice stuff. But anyways, this to me was really good for my bags. I've been taking a ton of Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, they seem locked now. Like the backups are Zach Pascal and Chris Moore. This 3 wide receiver set of Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch seems like it could be like every snap. And that's pretty exciting for me considering the way I think Cardinals offense is going to go this year. So, Evan, what do you think about Wilson, Dortch in the fallout of this Zay Jones suspension?
I mean, I think that you summed it up really nicely there. You know, it's going to be a 3-by-1 of Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride as the tight end on like every single snap.
Yeah. All right. Last story to get to here. Today's story 22. Big Mike Williams. No surprise given the way it's gone, but no surprise. But the Jets announced Big Mike Williams off the ACL will play in week 1. Jets have said all along Mike Williams is going to be on the Breece Hall kind of plan. Remember, in week 1 last year, Breece Hall got 11 out of 30 running back touches. But by week 5, Breece Hall, I think it was 22 or 23 out of 35 running back touches. So a quick ramp up for Breece last year, and hopefully it will be a quick ramp up for Mike Williams this year. I think the question is, Evan, even if Mike Williams is healthy, how excited are you about him at his age with Aaron Rodgers, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low volume passing offense. They're going to play slow. They're going to lean heavily on maybe the best defense in the league. And Garrett Wilson is going to be the clear number 1. With that said, stylistically, you know, Mike Williams is an Aaron Rodgers type of receiver because he can win on that back shoulder, and no one throws the back shoulder better than Aaron Rodgers. I think he could have some big games. I think he could score touchdowns, you know. But I don't think, you know, it's just there's not going to be a lot of passing volume on that team, and he's going to be the clear number 2 option behind Garrett Wilson.
Goal line fades, you know, some of those like back shoulder type throws. I don't expect to see a ton of volume though for Mike Williams. We are at where we actually had him expecting to play week 1. Yeah, we have Mike Williams 125 overall, right in that Gabe Davis, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Cooks type range for us right now on Big Mike Williams. All right. That is going to do it for a full off season of fantasy football podcast. We will be shifting our focus next week to more week 1 related micro content. Be sure you stay tuned for that. If you want to hear Evan and I discuss every player in every game on the main slate, that will be coming to you for in-season subscribers on the Friday before week 1. Our show is Friday night. Me, Evan, Andrew Wiggins, we just sit down, go position by position, talk about every single player's outlook for roughly every single player's outlook for everybody that's in play on the slate. So be sure to pick up the early bird bundle or the in-season package if you're interested in that. For Evan, producer Ryan, producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.